Good morning! Good morning, everyone! Yay! I hope everyone's doing well. You know what time it is? It's Higurashi time. That's what time it is. This is true. This is very true. um, yeah! So we finished chapter 3 last episode. No, we're into chapter 4. I'm so excited. I took notes yesterday. I wanted to talk about what happened in the last chapter, just a little bit. Cause my god. My god. You remember at the end when there's like the credits thing rolling? There were all these like scrambled sentences. I decoded them. It's just they're kind of like spaces in weird places. So I will read through some of them. I think that it's pretty much just commentary from Ryukishio 7. But I thought it was interesting. I really liked it. So there was Jiro Tomitake, a mysterious old man with the role of an extra, yet still popular. He won't be doing much for a while. Mio Takano, blah, 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 blah. I made this character seriously suspicious. Seems kind of like the last boss. Maybe she should be the one to take the punches in the end. I need to make her so bad even Coach would punch her. Maybe a full transformation in the end is in order. Kuraudo Oishi. A completely enigmatic man, though I'll admit he's convenient. Maybe he'll turn trustworthy in the end after clearing up the misunderstandings. And then there's Katsuya Kumatani, and that's the same as Oishi. Kyosuke Irie, I made him seem like a very good person. I'll need to make him into a terrible criminal in the end. Rika Furude, a convenient character who can't help but garner popularity. If Satoko doesn't get more popular with this, then she might not be able to make a comeback. Speaking of suffering, maybe Mion has it worse. Pained laugh. Mysterious girl in the way, the incarnation of the curse theory, and then Hinamizawa village gas disaster and memoriam list. Apparently you're supposed to call disasters like I think this is the Great Hanshin earthquake severe disasters. I didn't actually look that up. Still, it's a terrifying plan, though I guess sterilization operations are like this. I need to think hard so it's realistic. And then there's a bunch of like characters, died in the Great Hinamizawa disaster, etc. And it's just, passed away in the Great Hinamizawa disaster, may they rest in peace, etc. And then there's Tatsuyoshi Kasai, died at the victim's hospital on August 11. I wonder if he really has a thing for Shion. That would be so cute if he did. How I don't know who that is. Have we... Kasai... Tatsu... I don't know if this person has been mentioned before. Maybe in the other doc. I didn't actually look into that. I forgot it. Let me check. Tatsu... Nope. Kasai? The driver? Shion's driver? The guy who, in the console art style, has Mystic Messenger torso length proportions? That would not be cute if he has a thing for Shion. That would not be how. Please don't do that. Anyways, Shion Sonozaki, the more minor of the twins always gets more popular, but I think it would still hold true. Maybe it's fate, or maybe coincidence. You're okay to think of Watanagashi considering the suicide, though. I was thinking about this a bit. I wonder if... So we kind of know that there's some things that never change throughout the episodes. One of those is like Tomitake dying, same place, same way, same time. What if Shion committing suicide is another one of those things? I don't know. Because She also, I mean, it's a bit unclear, but she might have died by suicide in the second chapter. So I wonder if she also did in the first, but because we didn't even know she existed, we never knew that. Then there's Keiichi. Did he just end up going crazy in the end? My condolences, I suppose. Keiichi never really dies in a good way. Am I not allowed to laugh? And then it's talking about how he's diagnosed with mental disorder. Mental disorder, what? But with so many terrible things happening, people will break. You must never forget that feeling. We all live because we have a heart to live with. If we forget that, we are just living puppets. Remember you're alive and have a soul. Yeah, and then there's like, in the credits, little comments for all the people. I also decoded all of them. It was cute. So, basically, I maybe I need to do some research into volcanic gas eruptions. I briefly talked to my dad about it because he's a nerd. He's a freaking nerd. And he humored me. But it was more just talking at him. But there was, maybe I should actually look at this. I have a bit of a theory about that. Maybe Keiichi sending the motorbike into the swamp was what triggered the volcanic gas eruption. Maybe it was like whatever fuel or whatever was in the motorbike. Maybe that set something off. And it didn't happen straight away. And that could be because of this like how they sink in the swamp. Here we go. The legends, they used to wrap a living person up in a bamboo mat and let them sink down into a bottomless swamp. It seems it took 3 days and 3 nights for them to sink. So people used to offer sacrifices to Oyashiro-sama to calm his wrath. And maybe I don't know the exactly how this would work, but like maybe there's something with the sacrifices that they would put in the swamp, and then with the Watanagashi festival where they set like cotton like drifting afloat, maybe something in that like prevents it from like erupting. And yeah, with the it takes like 3 days 3 nights for it to sink. Maybe that's why there was a delayed reaction. It didn't happen as soon as Keiichi drove the bike in there. Yeah. Yeah, so very interesting stuff. I really enjoyed it. It was baffling. But let's start. I should have set this up properly, so we'll see. Himatsubushi. For you, the final mystery. Time-killing chapter. I now entrust you with all the mysteries hidden within Higurashi when they cry. However comical it may be, if you have reached any conjecture, then you have passed. This final novel is a meager reward for you. Conjecture is impossible. You have the right to reject this story. Interesting. I don't really have like a solid theory that wraps everything up neatly. And I wanna, before we move on to the answers arcs, chapter 5 onwards, I wanna have a few explanations for things. Yeah. I have like, a few like kind of disjointed theories, but I have nothing really solid. And I don't know if I will get anything solid, by the end of this, but yeah. I'm hoping with this one we'll have one more scenario to look at and be like, okay, this is another source of information I can compare to the other 3. So yeah, let's start. Ha 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 ha. This arc includes choices that were added in the console version. These choices result in dialogue changes and can lead to bad ends. Do you want to see these choices? Do I? No, not voices, choices. There's only one choice and it's added at the there's only one choice added and it's at the end. Would recommend not turning on choices since with the mod they come up at climactic scenes. I don't know what to do. Okay, seems like people are saying if you want to experience the original story, then don't. Okay. I'm gonna say no. Oh god. We'll do only content from PC version because that's kind of what I've committed to. With not doing any of the console arcs. Sorry, any Higurashi fans watching screaming. No, why did you tell them on? I'm sorry. Who is the criminal, you asked? Don't we search for them in this story? Who is the criminal, you ask? Do you even know what the criminal did? Who's the criminal? Who is the criminal who would kill me now? Federica Berncastle. Depicting him as a real good guy is important. Okay, I can decode those because now I know that that isn't just like Latin. Midsummer 1985. Okay, I should have turned the voices down. Yeah, I think we're good. Well. Summer 1985. I had misread the time and ended up arriving too early. The schedule board flipped with a series of clacks. My flight to Sapporo was still a bit later on. I still had over an hour before boarding. Well, I might as well close my eyes for a bit on that bench over there then. Wasn't there something with Oishi, like, something about, like, his mother? Something about, like, moving to Sapporo with her, maybe? I came here directly from work, so maybe the fatigue from that was making me sleepy. Finding a suitable bench, I put my luggage on the seat next to me and settled down. Phew, Akasaka. I sighed like an old man. I'd hoped to stay young forever, but had become splendidly middle-aged. Apparently the rumor that even people in the latter half of their 20s experience a decline in their physical strength wasn't a lie. It had been mind-numbingly busy at work lately, so I rarely had any time to myself. This might have been the first time I'd been able to enjoy a journey alone, like this since I was a student. Akasaka? The reason behind this trip was to meet with an old friend. It was a bit strange to call him an old friend. In fact, it might be better to call him a bad one. After retiring a couple of years ago, he moved to Sapporo, his mother's hometown. That would be Oishi, I think. His mother passed away soon after, and he was now peacefully enjoying his second lease on life. His name was Kuraudo Oishi. He was a former detective from the primary investigation unit at the station Okinomiya, Prefecture. To be honest, the only direct contact we ever had didn't last more than 3 days. After that, we exchanged New Year's cards, but never met again. So this would be the first time meeting him in 7 years. In other words, we met 7 years ago. In 1978. There was something I just had to ask, to talk to him about concerning that time. To explain that, it was impossible not to recall the incident that happened back then. So, one of the things I've been really thinking about is like, what is the story? Why is it changing? And I'm thinking how to say this. Is it like someone is trying to piece together what happened? Like, who wasn't there? I don't know. I don't know. That kidnapping, the details and resolution of which were resigned to darkness. Kidnapping. 1978. So we were 83. What? Wait. 7 I'm so stupid. Wait. 7 years ago. Sorry, I'm so bad at doing maths about time. It's really embarrassing. Okay, so yeah, okay. Oh no. Yeah, okay, wait. Yeah. That would have been around the time of the dam site dismemberment, I think. You know what? I could check my thinking zone probably. I probably have the year. I'm sorry, this is embarrassing. 1979, the dam site murder. And there was also, there was the talk, a mention of a child who was kidnapped. I remember looking at this in my notes, just like the other day. Who turned up, like, by some river or something. And that was part of the dam site protests, apparently. That kidnapping, the details and resolution of which were resigned to darkness. Also, it was impossible not to recall a certain mysterious girl. Okay, if this guy is in his, like, late 20s? Latter half of their 20s, so, like, above 25? 7 years ago could have been like, it depends. Somewhere close to 20, so yeah, and then the time of, like, the events of the game that we've seen would have been in his 20s. I'm assuming he. Her name is Mamoru Akasaka. It was a year that had been strangely hot, even though it was only June. Early summer 1978. Goodbye, teacher. Okay, bye. Watch out for cars, and don't drop in at a friend's house along the way. Make sure you get your textbooks in order for tomorrow before you go to bed. Clatter, clatter, clatter. The lively sounds of children running towards the hallway. Maybe I should hear what this guy's voice is like. That's useful. Let's turn the voices off. The lively sounds of children running towards the hallway. Hey now, didn't I tell you before? I already have one of those. I don't need any more. The unique high-pitched voice of youth, the energetic shrill of the cicadas went completely unheard by their ears. Children returning home from school split off one by one from their groups of friends as they went through intersections in the residential area. Even though there were several of them in a group as they left the school, as they got closer to their homes, their numbers dwindled. That's why the fewer friends you were walking home with acted as an indicator that you were much closer to your destination. Later! See ya! Yeah, see you tomorrow. He finally parted ways with his last friend. A van was parked at a bend in the road. I'm suspicious of vans. The window was open, the sound of the radio leaking outside. It must have been the news or something. For that reason, the three of them were arrested for traffic violations and obstruction of justice. I wonder if they're talking about the dam protests. Due to the protests against the Hinamizawa Dam project resulting in bloodshed when clashing with riot police last month, things have only become more violent. The police are therefore taking precautions against radical activists causing yet another incident. Last week there was also a direct confrontation with Minister Inukai on the steps of the Ministry of Construction. The boy's ears perked up at the mention of the name Inukai. That moment, a man's face peeked out suddenly from the window of the van. His behavior was a little different than that of a man looking around to see if there was any incoming traffic before he opened the door of his vehicle. His eyes meeting suddenly with the unfamiliar man, the boy panicked slightly. Nightingale, okay? Skylark, okay. They've secured the 2 blocks around us. We're good to go. The man in the passenger seat whispered quietly. Nodding in acknowledgement, the man opened the door and stood before the boy. You. Are you Toshiki Inukai-kun? Toshiki Inukai. While asking that, the man peered at the boy's name tag. Toshiki Inukai. The name was written plainly there. I think we might be getting the story of the kid who was kidnapped. The phone rang for a 3rd time. If he reached out, he could easily pick up the receiver. However, he was concerned that if he picked up before it had even finished ringing once, whoever was on the other end of the line would think him a fairly cheap person. That's why he normally never picked up the phone until the 3rd ring. Even he thought it was a worthless habit. However, his thinking that there isn't much meaning in waiting for just 3 rings much meaning in waiting for just 3 rings, wouldn't waiting for 5 be alright, was very much a reality. His mind filled with such trifling thoughts. He picked up the phone after the 3rd ring had finished, its reverb dampened by his action. Yes. Hello? Okay, what kind of voice are we getting here?
Hi, moshi moshi.
Okay, that's like a...
君、犬飼俊樹君?
ひばり OK 前後2ブロック確保したいいぞ
Okay, these are like men. Yes, hello? Hello? He knew that sometimes, due to a malfunction at the switchboard, calls didn't connect well. At those times, it was best to hang up and let the person on the other end call again. Thinking that, the moment he began to hang up the phone, he sensed that he was definitely connected after all. He felt the presence of the person on the other end of the line, keeping silent. Hello? There was no way they didn't hear his question. What was the meaning of this? It wasn't like he didn't know that people could use silent calls to harass others. However, he'd never received a call like that until today. Maybe he was just lucky before, but he didn't believe that he would receive such a call on this phone. There were no direct calls to or from this line. Everything had to go through an operator. Therefore, there was absolutely no way the call would be connected unless it was verified there was somebody else on the other end of the line. That's why he didn't understand how to deal with this silent call and instead settled into confusion. I don't know who you are, but if you have nothing to say, I'm gonna hang up. Please call again some other time. Intending that to be a parting line, he made to slam down the receiver. It was at that moment the person on the other end spoke for the first time. You didn't say who you were, so I was anxious. Kidnapper! If you're not Minister Inukai, please hang up right away. He couldn't help but be surprised by the extremely strange voice on the other end of the line. Was there a human alive who could speak with this hoarse and metallic voice? No, this was a voice he had heard somewhere before. He's listening to the voice. When there's new characters introduced, I wanna hear what they sound like.
あんたが犬飼大臣じゃないなら、さっさと電話を切ってください。
Oh, okay. Alright then. No, this was a voice he had heard somewhere before. That was the kind of voice that was on those lowbrow documentaries that they'd use when they wanted to hide the identity of a speaker, wasn't it? The voice he was hearing over the line was exactly like that. Who are you?
As I said, that's what I want to ask. Are you Minister Inukai?
He, Inukai, hesitated to answer. Unable to discern the intent of this suspicious phone call, he had a vague feeling that something was off. He thought about hanging up the phone and asking the operator who initiated the call. However, he forced himself to restrain that urge, and for the time being, chose to state his name and listen. That's right. This is Inukai. I said my name, now you say yours.
My name doesn't matter. First of all, let's begin by thinking about the situation you're in right now. Right now, you're sitting in your chair talking on the phone, yes? Then why don't you try opening the lower drawer to your right?
The lowest drawer to the right of the minister's chair. There was a lock on it, not enough to function as a safe, but nevertheless it was a drawer that contained some valuable things. That's why Inukai thought that the person wanted some of the important information contained within that drawer. Gonna be empty? Sorry, but I don't have any intention of opening that. I have no reason to follow orders from somebody who won't even give me his name.
If you don't open that drawer, I'll hang up the phone. You will most likely end up regretting that. Why don't you think about opening that drawer first?
Inukai didn't like following orders from this suspicious person one bit. However, he was concerned about what the man said about regretting it, so he decided to open the drawer. He took the small key he kept stowed in his wallet and unlocked the drawer. His hand stopped right before he opened it. What if there was a bomb inside and it would explode if the drawer was opened? That delusion took hold of him. He quelled that instinct and opened it.
Did you do it? The thing that's in there, do you know what it is?
What is the meaning of this? Hey!
I don't think there's any need for me to explain, is there? I'll give you some time, so please think about it a little. I'll contact you again later. Now then, pardon me.
Hey! Wait! Hello? Hello? The call had already ended. That would not change no matter how much he yelled at it. Even still, Inukai, without realizing that, continued yelling into the receiver for a while. The drawer was still open. On top of the folders crammed into the drawer, it lay there. Toshiki Inukai, written in plain lettering on a grade school's name tag, just lying there. Okay, so it's his son. Let me quickly check. So I'll go to my initial notes. And if I look up, nope, do not want to type that. I want to find and document kid nap. Okay. Sonozaki family. This is from episode 2. Government officials who gave permission for the construction received all kinds of threats. Apparently this reached as far as the Ministry of Construction. Apparently they even kidnapped a child once. The child of an important person in the Ministry of Construction who was in charge of the dam got spirited away. Then one day he was suddenly rescued in the Takatsuro Mountains, which are upstream from Hinamizawa. Apparently there were never any criminal accusations, but there were rumors that it was a threat to stop the dam. Hey, Megadoogles, what's up? We're just starting chapter 4 of Higurashi, When They Cry. And this is very different. So this guy could be, well, yeah, this guy's probably, in the Ministry of Construction, and his child. Yeah, and the child is mentioned to be a he. The Takatsuro Mountains, upstream from Hinamizawa. Upstream is interesting. Enshrined there, completely out of place, as if it were cowering. This is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual persons or organizations is entirely coincidental. Higurashi when they cry. The 7th expansion presents Welcome to Hinamizawa when they cry. Do you remember, Yukie? This picture. This is where I first proposed to you. That brief moment before you nodded back, you probably wouldn't know just how much. It seemed like an eternity to me. Yes, I would have never thought that amount of time could feel like an eternity. Compared to how long I had to wait for you to propose to me, it was... From the moment I met you until today. Compared to the time I've spent since I was born, it might only be a brief period, but they were definitely precious, beautiful days that deserve to be called an eternity. That time continues even now. From now on. I wonder if it'll be a boy. Or maybe a girl? Either one is fine. Boy or girl. Either way, it's living proof that we love each other. If it's a boy, we'll name it after you. Mamoru. If it's a girl, we'll put the Yuki from my name in hers. Thinking about names is so fun that in the end we still haven't decided yet. There's still time to puzzle over it. Not that long of a time, actually. You see, Yukie? There's something I have to apologize for today. It's about your job. Sorry. It looks like an annoying bit of work has come up. In the worst case, I might not be able to be there for the delivery. It's fine. You have a very important job. What you do protects the way we live. Compared to you, it's nothing. Please go ahead. When you return, I'll be waiting here with our child. Thank you. Also, I'm sorry. Please don't apologize. If you feel guilty about it, then you can just atone. If I atone that much, no matter how much money I have, it won't be enough. Hihi? It's a joke. Now, go on. As I left the room, I bumped into an elderly man. It was Yukie's father, in other words, my father-in-law. Father. I didn't want to intrude, so I waited in the hall. Didn't mean to eavesdrop, but I heard. Go. Yukie is that kind of girl. No matter what happens, she doesn't want to hold you back. I've forced Yukie to give up on so many things. Okay. Okay. So his name is Mamoru Akasaka. Or Akasaka Mamoru. I forgot which way around. I've forced Yukie to give up on so many things. To put her through this during childbirth, such an important time in her life, I'm ashamed. If you really feel that way, when you're done with your work, make some time for Yukie. She'll be happier with that than you passing your work off on someone else. Thank you. I know full well you do important work. Be proud in what you do. Yukie is looking forward to your triumphant return. Yes. I jumped into the taxi that was waiting outside. Compared to the time when I first got here, the numbers on the fare meter had grown considerably. It seemed the modest time Yukie and I had spent together wasn't so modest from an objective point of view. Sorry to keep you waiting, go ahead. No worries. Well then, off we go. The taxi jerked as it changed gears to accelerate, soon burying the hospital my wife was in behind a throng of buildings. If it was to end up as a really troublesome ordeal, I probably wouldn't be returning for quite some time. To call a rookie like me, and on top of that, one who's off duty, it seemed that the section chief was calling for all hands on deck. I wonder if that would be because the kid's gone missing, been kidnapped. The veteran upper brass gathering on an emergency basis happened occasionally. This was the first time, though, that I experienced everybody gathering together like this. Whatever was happening, there was no doubt it was going to be something novel. Right when my wife was ready to give birth. If I wanted to spend the time to curse my misfortunes, I'd be here all day. Even the verdant ginkgo trees lining the street that always brightened my mood seemed to lack some of their usual luster. Eventually the government office came into view. Briefly holding my breath, I let the feelings of tension course through my body once again. I had to remember the work I was doing was important, necessary, and difficult. I composed myself and sharpened my wit. Ready. The taxi stopped in front of the building. Kasumi Gaseki Tokyo Police Department. Lost Boy Key! Is the new album out? Wahahaha. Okay, Kano. Chief, everyone's here. Akasaka-kun, could you close the blinds? The blinds were usually closed when they needed to use the projector, or if the discussion was going to contain some particularly disturbing content. It's out, is it good? It's fantastic? Oh, that's so good! I'm glad. The blinds closed with a satisfying sound, darkening the interior of the room. Immediately, the inside of the room was completely drained of the pleasant morning atmosphere, leaving behind only the cold illumination of the fluorescent lighting. After the supervisor ensured that everyone was present, he nodded to the section chief once again. With everybody on the edge of their seats, the chief stood up solemnly and began to give his report. Approximately 48 hours ago, the Minister of Construction's grandson, who was also the son of one of his staff leaders, is believed to have been kidnapped. It's believed that the minister, in an effort to resolve matters amicably, chose not to report the situation to the police and plans to cede to the demands imposed upon him. It seemed that approximately 48 hours earlier, that is literally what the guy just said. It seemed that approximately 48 hours earlier, the Minister of Construction's grandson, who was also the son of one of his senior staff members, was kidnapped. The reason why it was phrased that way was because the person in question didn't admit it had happened. Based on the results of surveillance conducted on the minister's residence, multiple suspicious phone calls from what is believed to be outside the city took place. The abducted child is said to be under treatment for some illness, but there's no trace of any hospital records or witnesses to such effect. Due to that and various other reasons, we believe without a doubt that a kidnapping has occurred. Here, they omitted the details that brought this incident to light. If you think about it a bit, that meant that before this incident happened, the minister's residence had been under surveillance already. I won't use the word spied upon. Of course, there wouldn't have been court approval for this, and it would have been very hard to explain to ordinary citizens. However, it was quite an effective method to catch wind of incidents like this before they got worse. I'd like for you to understand that dealing with these cases before they become a problem is the job of the Public Safety Division. Why is he just following their demands instead of reporting this to the police? The fact that a minister can't even trust the police, what is the world coming to? It seems the group of perpetrators demonstrated that they have quite a high level of surveillance on the minister themselves when they conducted the kidnappings. Enough to give the minister pause before calling the police. We'll find out right away if you call the cops, more or less. So it's possible that there's a mole close to the minister. Several of the higher-ranking members who seem to have experience with this kind of thing let out deep sighs. The goals of the perpetrators, their demands, as well as this entire incident are as of yet unclear, but in any case, the possibility that this may grow to threaten national interest is extremely high. If their goal was to simply have their demands met for monetary gain, that would have been nice. However, if this was some politically motivated shake-up, things would get a lot more complicated. Since we're not receiving any cooperation from the victim, that means that we're not privy to any of the details of the threats or demands. Due to the fact we believe there may be a mole involved in this incident, this investigation is highly classified. Only the people in this room are to know of this. Furthermore, as this case is our utmost priority, we'll be placing a hold on everybody's normal duties. Understood? After that, the supervisor continued on, tactfully explaining our course of action. If this incident were to become public, it was possible that the minister's political life would be over. I'll spare you the explanation of how the rest of the dominoes would fall, but in the end, support in the Diet would decline, followed by a no-confidence vote and a snap election, and it might even expand communist influences. Oh, from this! In other words, we wanted to handle this delicately. Kawasaki and Saeki monitor communications from the minister and the child's residences 24/7. Find out what the minister is doing. Report anything that happens. The remaining members investigate whatever is related to the case is assigned to your units. Focus your line of investigation on the commies, Reds, and Confeds. Don't discount the possibility of foreign involvement either. I've experienced one or two unamicable situations before. This, however, was the first time I've seen things get so hectic. Several sophisticated conversations were progressing without the involvement of a rookie like me. I didn't intend to be timid, but I couldn't hide my confusion at this unfamiliar situation. And cover that. As for Akasaka-kun, I snapped back to alertness upon hearing my name called. Yes! You investigate the environmental groups that have petitioned the minister. Among them, there's that group protesting the Hinamizawa Dam project that made the papers. Make sure you investigate them thoroughly. The S group? I doubt this is the act of some citizen group, but we have to eliminate every possibility we can. Understood. So those opposed to the Hinamizawa Dam. It's probably best if you go to the location personally. Get some information from the local authorities. They're a fairly radical organization, so the Public Safety Division there should have them marked as well. Understood. I'll head over there. Your wife. She's almost ready to give birth, isn't she? I apologize for the timing of all this, but I'm counting on your cooperation. We can't take our time with this, so we just have to brute force it with our boots to the ground. Yeah, I know. My wife hates to interfere with my work with her own circumstances anyways. Sorry, and thanks. So then, as for Kawasaki-kun and Saeki-kun, to help support your... I didn't want to take a business trip when my wife was about to give birth. Even if I was a little busy, as long as I was in Tokyo, I could head to the hospital right away. On assignment, though, that would be difficult. Even so, I knew the work I was doing was important, and fully understood that I was in no position to be selfish. I'd have to make it up to my wife for having to be away at such an important time. My wife, Yukie, would probably forgive me with a smile. The only thing she could hate doing would be holding me back. My male ego, though, at least wished she would have tried to stop me. Sorry, Yukie. I don't mind if you always complain to our child that their father couldn't come to the hospital when they were born because he was too busy with work. This is a very interesting and different start. Okay, I'm gonna take a 5-minute break, just to maintain my voice. I will doink tea time, and I will run a 2-minute ad break. I will see you all soon. Yahoo! I'm back. Yay. Alright. The next day I took the bullet train to Nagoya, and from there transferred to the train to Mie Prefecture. Getting to my destination by land took several hours. If I was traveling by air, in that amount of time I could probably get as far as Hong Kong. Mie Prefecture was by no means close. I never sat in first class except for work, but whenever I did, the seats seemed stiff. Closing my eyes, I mentally reviewed the documents I read yesterday. You know what would be awesome? I think it would be awesome. There's a lot of things I think would be awesome in this world, like, I don't know. Don't put me on the spot. I think it would be awesome if we got to saw like me on as like a little kid. The group under investigation, the Onigafuchi Guardians. They were a group of residents opposed to the development proposed under the Hinamizawa Dam project. The local protests were quite heated, and were getting more radicalized. Even limited to what was written in the newspapers, there was bloodshed that occurred during a clash with riot police, interference with the dam construction, too many to count. The number of petitions, sit-ins, and direct appeals to the relevant organizations were innumerable. As an extension of that, there was a direct appeal to the Minister of Construction the other day. This was the reason why we were investigating this group in the first place. The land that they lived on was going to be submerged, so it was no wonder they would go into a frenzy over it. Even given that, though, could they really be capable of doing something like kidnapping the Minister of Construction's grandson in order to halt the project? From my take on it, I had serious doubts. This kidnapping plot was extremely sophisticated, and complicated enough that it was believed there was some political backing. This wasn't something that could be pulled off by some group of local protesters. Well, just like the chief said, the plan was to eliminate all possibilities. While I'm in the Mie police's reference room, taking my time investigating, the higher-ups in Tokyo would probably solve the case, without my involvement entirely. Even if that was true, I couldn't regret being away from Tokyo while my wife was ready to give birth. This was work. There was really nothing that I could do. Ding dong. The announcement that we would be arriving at our destination soon snapped me back to wakefulness. Ogura, Mie Prefecture, Prefectural Public Safety Division. The Onigafuchi Guardians? Yeah, they've been quite active around here. The Prefectural Public Safety Department already had the documents and a cup of tea ready and waiting for me. I have a cup of tea, although it's almost empty. Or depending on your viewpoint, slightly full. The short of it is they're a group of residents that opposed to the dam. Really, it's probably better to say that every resident living on the land that's going to be submerged is rising to action, though. Like the old saying, fight to the last. They're a determined and well-prepared lot. It'd be nice if they drew the line at just being a moderate residential organization. The stack of papers they had prepared for me in the document room was by no means thin. At first, they were pretty much your average citizens' initiative, but ever since that incident with the riot police, they've really started to heat up. Now they've got a violent mentality, on top of growing increasingly radical. Radical, dude. Violent organizations usually indicate ones that enforce their own ideology without regards to the democratic process. Breaking that down, many of those organizations held extreme left revolutionary ideologies. Considering that, I couldn't help but be surprised that a citizens group would end up going this far. Radical citizens movements happen occasionally. It seemed, however, that this group was nothing as trifling as that. It seemed that I would have to reconsider exactly what this Onigafuchi Guardians was. The Guardians' demand, in other words, the withdrawal of the dam project. How far would they go to have that demand met? I want to hear this guy's voice. Because I feel like we're going to be seeing him a bit.
鬼ヶ淵主導名が要求。つまり、ダム計画の撤回を求めるために行いうる活動範囲はどの程度でしょうか?
What a handsome voice. The Guardians demand... Did I already read that? The Guardians demand, in other words, the withdrawal of the dam project. How far would they go to have that demand met? The kidnapping of the minister's grandson was classified. That meant, of course, I couldn't tell the Mie prefectural department about it either. As you know, there were arrests after last week's confrontation with Minister Inukai. There's enough reason to believe they could use illegal means to assert their demands. I skimmed over the list of the criminal records related to the Onigafuchi Guardians recorded in the documents. The contents were all violent, not giving me the barest hint of a feeling that these people were trying to uphold the law. Could you give me a basic rundown on the types of illegal activities the Onigafuchi Guardians are engaging in? The chief opened up a manila envelope, fished out several unorganized sheets, and spread them out on the desk. Seems that raids on the construction site are the most common. At first they were committing relatively petty crimes like cutting power cords, jamming locks, and breaking down office windows by throwing rocks. Of course, what really happened first were things like demonstrations, sit-ins, and distribution of pamphlets, but lively but democratic forms of protests. Small text, here we go. However, then the demonstrators and police clashed, which started a riot, leading to numerous injuries and arrests. It was from then on that the Onigafuchi Guardians, like their name implies, began to take a more demonic form of resistance. If the raids were frequent, didn't the local police up their patrols? Well, of course they were on full alert, but they were up against locals, you know? There wasn't much the police could do if they were sneaking around under the cover of darkness. You might as well label the entire map of Hinamizawa village around the dam construction site enemy territory. No matter how alert the police were, the locals would just show them exactly how easy it was to sneak around. Actually, it was after the police upped security that the protesters started getting ever more extreme, as though they were being provoked. See here? Can you tell how things started to heat up? An office set on fire. The destruction of heavy construction equipment. Destruction? They couldn't have used explosives. I don't know what they're saying. No way. You see, they crammed the gas tanks full of sugar cubes. If they do that, it fouls the engines. We've heard of that. Even in Japan, it seemed there had been people doing that to the vehicles of occupying forces right after the war. Compared to misdemeanors like breaking windows, it was extremely violent and aggressive. After being toyed around with to that extent, the local police have completely lost face. The arson was a bit much. After that, the local police drastically increased the number of personnel they had stationed there around the clock. The raids on the construction site quieted down a bit after that. Sorry, I think I need to take another quick break. My throat's a little bit sore. Give me a moment, Everlaz. Because I really do want to play this, but yeah. I will return shortly. I will see you soon. Everyone, get some water. Yeah, that's my demand. Or else. Okay, see you soon. I'm back. Yeah, I don't know what it is. My voice just kind of feels different today. So maybe it'll be a bit of a short one. We'll see. Alright, here we go. Raids on the construction site quieted down a bit after that. We use the words quieted down, but was still smack dab in the middle of the list of crimes. See, after they found that attacking the site had become difficult, they started resorting to personal attacks. The first people targeted were the construction workers. After that, there was silence. What was being described to me was a guerrilla war fought in the jungle. Threats and violence against the workers. Harsh words and harsher rocks were thrown. There's quite a list of accusations here, but there's not a whole lot of convictions. Of course not. First of all, there's no witnesses. On top of that, even if we identify the perpetrators, they have alibis coming out of the woodwork. What do you mean by that? Take for example, you're walking around Hinamizawa when a certain man stabs you with a knife. You remember the person clearly, and even know his name and address. However, the knife doesn't have any fingerprints on it, and there's no other physical evidence. Well, you'd think this would be a run-of-the-mill case of assault, wouldn't you? In Hinamizawa, though, it's a perfect crime. Everybody is. The entire village. They're all in on it. To protect the man who was the perpetrator, they'll get their story straight and prepare an alibi. To that end, they'll probably even forge some evidence. There's nothing they can do but put them on trial. On top of there not being any material evidence though, people testify one after another to cover his side of the story. Any prosecutor would hesitate to file charges. I'm not sure about murder, but if it's something like opening a gash on somebody's forehead with a thrown rock or leaving a bruise after hitting someone, even if you could single out the suspect, there's enough reasonable doubt not to convict. Every case is without a doubt perpetrated by someone in Hinamizawa, but they can't identify who. Even if they could figure out who it is, they're unable to obtain enough circumstantial evidence through due process. The villagers were all extremely well informed about this, and so the malicious, vicious, and tenacious personal attacks continued. The victims can't have been okay with that, right? Couldn't they have filed for an appeal? Well, see about that. Everybody on the inquest committee didn't want to get involved with something so troublesome. They won't stick their noses into anything related to Hinamizawa. The inquest committee is comprised of a random selection of local residents. In the event the prosecutor fails to get a conviction, they have the power to order a retrial. It's a system designed to assert the will of the people on the actions of expert prosecutors in the legal world. In this case, however, being composed of local residents has backfired. They don't want to get involved? Why is that? How do I explain this? You could say they're afraid, since it's a little special there. Special? Is it an outcast? When you say this?
Outcast.
Okay, it's just outcast. What is a cast? Okay. No, it's a little different from that. Well, just think of them as being afraid. It's a little hard to explain it just now. Oh, right, there's an easier way. Wiping his forehead with a handkerchief, he opened a file labeled as a list of members of the Onigafuchi Guardians. The power of the Onigafuchi Guardians, you see, is the fact that they count many people among their members who were influential in neighboring areas. Could you take a look at this? I looked. What I saw startled me. Prefectural and municipal assembly members, staff members of the Chamber of Commerce, an executive of a business association, an executive of a town council association, and a PTA liaison. There were more than a few people with a lot of say both locally and in the neighbouring regions. Around here, you could pretty much expect your actions to be observed by those against the dam project. If you said something in its support, who knows how it would work out to your disadvantage. In any case, every town in this area is being held by the throat by somebody from Hinamizawa. The list of Inquisition Committee members is undisclosed, isn't it? There has to be some measures in place to make sure they'd avoid retribution, no? Well, it is undisclosed, so their privacy is assured, but the person in charge of that is from the Okinomiya Municipal Office. In other words, a local. Okay. While you might expect some professional confidentiality, you can't know how everybody is connected. The people from Hinamizawa have a lot of tight bonds in that regard. When you consider the obligations and duties people have to the region, the web of information thereby formed is nothing to scoff at. It's not uncommon for housewives in a neighborhood to know which kid from which house is in which grade in which school, what subjects they're good at, and what vegetables they hate, among other things. You see, there's a Yakuza organization here with strong ties to Hinamizawa and the surrounding area. It would seem that they're providing full support in these recent incidents. They seem to be proving most effective. Gangsters? Siding together with the residents opposed to the construction of the dam? It's a little hard to see what their common interest is. It's not that difficult at all. You see, actually, one of the lieutenants in that gang is originally from Hinamizawa. He was adopted into a rather influential family in the village. Right, yeah, because the leaders of the Sonozaki family are women. So he was brought into the family, I assume by marriage. Exactly what was this Hinamizawa? I had thought it was some desolate, rustic village. However, for some reason they exerted a strong influence on the surrounding areas and had a strong sense of unity. They would protect their village by any means necessary, even if that meant resorting to violence. The chief had said that they were afraid because there were numerous influential people living there, but somehow I got the feeling that they were afraid of the village itself. There was something clearly different from what I had read in the documents in Tokyo. This was no simple residential protest against the dam. For some reason, an uneasy feeling began to nestle itself at the back of my mind. I chose the most basic way to ask my question. In other words, I directly asked what I wanted to know. Chief, this is just a hypothetical situation, but... Huh? This... Onigafuchi Guardians, in order to halt the dam project, do you think they could, say, threaten somebody important to accomplish that? The chief replied immediately. It's possible. Truth be told, they've already gone to municipal and prefectural offices, as well as local offices in the Ministry of Construction, and done things that could be construed as intimidation. Several of the workers' families have also reported that they're being followed around by some suspicious people. Well, that would make sense. To halt progress on the dam, they raided the construction site, destroying heavy machinery and lighting the construction office on fire. If they didn't have any qualms about doing that, threats and violence against people related to the dam would probably be no problem. But that was it. Even your everyday hoodlum could use threats and violence. However, this time it was the kidnapping of the minister's grandson, an abnormally high-level crime. Not only was pulling off the kidnapping difficult in the first place, but so was maneuvering to have the minister surrender to their demands immediately. There was no way this was the work of amateurs. Did these people have the power to enact this large of a crime? That was the heart of the matter. Was the Onigafuchi Guardians an organization capable of pulling this off? In order to ask that question once again, I chose the most basic method. Again, hypothetically, for the sake of argument, do you think they could kidnap a relative of someone of political importance? There's no way they could pull off something that big. That was the answer I most hoped for. If it was that answer, my work was as good as halfway done. I might be able to get back in time for my wife to give birth. That was how it was supposed to be. The chief, without a hint of hesitation, replied, "They just might. There's no telling how far they'd go." Sorry, Yukie. It seemed like my work wouldn't end so simply after all. Oh, Akasaka-kun, good work. How's the information gathering at your assigned region? It's coming along. Seems I'll be able to meet with their local public safety department, so I'm planning on heading out that way. How's the investigation in Tokyo going? The others are progressing along, but the number of groups we have to investigate are countless. Time isn't really a luxury here. There were no new developments at this time. No matter how suspicious the Onigafuchi Guardians was, if they solved the case in Tokyo, my job was done. It looked like my wishful thinking wouldn't come to pass. Hanging up the phone, I let my gaze drift outside the window to the valley of unfamiliar buildings. Akasaka-san, what a mouthful. A car you can borrow just returned. I'll take you to it, so follow me. Thank you. He showed me the elevator to the underground parking lot where a battered sedan was waiting for me. That the steering wheel kept drifting to the left was a little concerning, but it would be enough to get me around for a while. My destination was Shishibone City, Prefecture, an area under the control of the Onigafuchi Guardians. The Okinomiya police station was right on the front lines. Wahoo! This is very interesting. Very different to what we've had before. Okinomiya Prefecture, Okinomiya police station. Shishibone City was, as far as provincial cities went, rather behind the times. Okinomiya, recessed in the mountains, was even more remote. With little change between the seasons, all that was left was the tepid passage of time. It made for a rather drab town. There were no tourist attractions or local delicacies. Without even a strong regional industry, it was simply dull. Just looking at the monotonous and peaceful townscape, it was hard to catch a glimpse of the radical resistance of the Onigafuchi Guardians. The atmosphere of boredom didn't hint of the Okinomiya police station being on the front lines of the dam conflict, nor of the numerous incidents that I heard about at the prefectural headquarters. Good morning. Are you here to pay a fine? No, I have an appointment with Hondaya-san from the Public Safety Division. Please tell him it's Akasaka. My apologies. Please wait a minute. The clerk, who thought I was here for a parking violation at first glance, after fumbling with the unfamiliar extension number, told the person on the line they had a visitor. Welcome, welcome. Akasaka-san, was it? Akasaka. Must have been tiring traveling out all this way. Sorry we have to do this here. I tried to reserve a reception room, you see, but the council suddenly woke up and chased me out. Wahahaha. I would hesitate to call where we were a conference room, as it was very small and cluttered. The cramped space was packed with lockers. You'll sneeze. No, don't go. No, don't leave me, Sneeze. Sneeze, no! God. I lost the sneeze. I had the impression that it was more of a change room that doubled as one for smoking. Listening to his crude chortles, I didn't get much of a feeling that Hondaya, who was head of the local public safety division, was much of an intellectual. But I knew that in exchange he had both experience and absolute confidence in his instincts. I apologize for interrupting you during such a busy time. I'm Akasaka from the Metropolitan Police Department. Pleased to make your acquaintance. Hondaya from the Public Safety Division. Nice to meet ya. I was threatened by Sankai from the prefectural gangbusters to be generous with my cooperation. Wahahaha. Gangbusters? You mean the Prefectural Crime Prevention Division? You see, we're treating the Onigafuchi Guardians as an extension of the local Yakuza. You'd have to be a newbie if you think they're just a residential protest group. Wahahaha. They said at the prefectural office too that the Onigafuchi Guardians was linked to the local mob. If I recall correctly, the adopted son of somebody influential was a lieutenant in that gang. It's the other way around. The complete opposite. The Yakuza put up the protest group as a front to justify their actions. Just think of it like that. Completely the other way around. Wahahaha. Hondaya was just about rolling with laughter. This was slightly different than the info given to me at the prefectural office, but somebody embedded locally would be more knowledgeable. While we were talking, occasionally some people who seemed to be detectives would come in and change. One of those individuals, noticing Hondaya's guffaws, came up to us. Oishi? Fucking Oishi! It's fucking Oishi. I was wondering what you guys were talking about. I wonder if we're gonna get... This is actually the Oishi arc. You thought it was gonna be about Rika? Wrong. It's Oishi. No, foo, foo, foo. Oh, Kura-chan. Perfect timing. Why don't you join us? This here is Inspector Akasaka, who came all the way from the Tokyo Police Department. Inspector? I'm still a rookie. My name is Akasaka. Pleased to meet you. It must be nice to be so fresh-faced. Did they hire you this year? Foo, foo, foo. I couldn't help but think I was being ridiculed, so I only responded with a forced smile. I could tell that this new person was like Hondaya, the type who had confidence in their instincts and experience. I really didn't like those types of people. Let me introduce you, Akasaka-san. This is Oishi-kun from our investigative department. Regarding the S-file you were talking about, he's familiar with it. Sonosaki? S-file? S for Sonozaki. If something is an S-file, it means it has something to do with the Sonozaki family. It's something of a code name. I'd love to, like, get like one Oishi sentence from like every time he appears and just compare how much his accent changes. Sonozaki? Come to think of it, I remembered when I was poring over the documents at the headquarters, there were quite a few people with the last name Sonozaki popping up. If I remember right, there's a Sonozaki who is one of the executives of the Onigafuchi Guardians. I'm pretty sure they're the treasurer. The two of them were surprised when I rattled off what post that Sonozaki held. After a moment, both of them erupted into laughter. Akasaka-san, was it? Nah, ha, ha, ha. You're quite the studious one. Could it be you've memorized all the central figures in the Alliance? Nah, ha, 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 ha. I wouldn't say memorized exactly, but I've at least read the list of Onigafuchi Guardians executives. Foo-foo. Then who are the president and vice president? The president is the mayor of Hinamizawa, Kichiro Kimiyoshi. The vice president is the priest of the local shrine, Furude. The treasurer is Oyuro Sonozaki. The auditor is Makino. The liaison is Yoshiroshi Kimiyoshi. Yoshiroshi Kimiyoshi. The PR head is Sadao Sonozaki. Akasaka-san, you're pretty good. The pay sucks, but you want to work here? You're just the type we're looking for. Foo foo foo. By the way, Sadao Sonozaki is head of the youth department. So close. The head of the public relations is actually Tadataka Sonozaki. Feeling like I wasn't being complimented at all, I started settling into an uncomfortable mood. However, I was becoming more and more aware that I was the weakest link in this investigation, so I just had to bear with it. I didn't mean for that feeling to show up on my face, but the crafty detectives didn't let that slip by. I didn't mean to make fun of you. To make up for it, why don't I show you around the village? For somebody with no feel for the area like me, it would be a great help. I couldn't have asked for more. In the end, the Onigafuchi Guardians is nothing more than an alias Hinamizawa is using to deal with the outside world. I think getting to know the village would speed up your work. How about it? The residential movement, in other words, held influence over the whole region. So the leader of the movement was the leader of that influence. Just like that, the thought process in the region would become the overall personality of the movement. Just like Oishi had said, in order to learn what they were really like, this regional force behind the damn protests, getting to know the village, was the quickest way. If you would. Nodding back without skipping a beat, Oishi laughed in satisfaction and stood up. If I took the information I learned at the prefectural office from Hondaya to heart, if my position was exposed, my personal safety was at risk. The opponent was an extremist group that had no qualms about using threats or violence against somebody. If my personal info was leaked, it wouldn't be hard to imagine that I'd be in danger, whether on the job or not. Thinking that, I felt a little nervous. These guys are quick to remember faces. If you're seen with me, they'll probably do a lot to hinder your work. This might be a little cliche, but put these on. Oishi handed me an incredibly suspicious disguise comprised of a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a mask. I didn't want to get all hot and stuffy, but Oishi's warning was probably right on the money. Considering that, I put them on with appreciation. I looked so suspicious that Oishi had to smile wryly. How much did I tell you again? Let's see. to the part where you were talking about how these 3 ancient families control the village. The Onigafuchi Guardians was the same as the village of Hinamizawa itself, meaning there was a direct correlation between being an executive in the alliance and being a leader in the village, as Hondaya had told me a short time ago. If the village was ruled by 3 ancient families, then it would mean the Onigafuchi Guardians was ruled by those same 3 families. What did the documents at the prefectural office say about the leader of the Guardians or whatnot? The documents I was using were classified. If I responded to Oishi's question, it'd be a breach of security. However, most likely, this man I judged was more well-versed in the situation than any of the documents of the prefectural police department, so I decided to answer him. That the president of the alliance is the current mayor of the village, Kichiro Kimiyoshi. Oishi, upon hearing that, let out a small chuckle. For him to ask like that and to laugh at the answer as it was recorded in the documents meant that wasn't the case in reality. So then, that means there's something else other than Kimiyoshi behind the scenes, contrary to what the prefectural office thinks, or rather, what is commonly known. Foo. Old man Kimiyoshi is nothing more than a figurehead. In the first place, the post of mayor in that village is nothing more than ceremonial. In other words, there's someone else in charge of both the alliance and the village? Would that be the 3 families we just talked about? Well, I'll explain that part right now. Foo. All of a sudden, with a thunk, the car suddenly lurched. The paved road had given way to a gravel one. At the same time, the scenery outside the window changed. The Hinamizawa Dam project must be withdrawn. Overthrow the shameless puppet of a governor. The dam will submerge the natural beauty of Hinamizawa. Protect the village from the unethical dam. Fear the wrath of Oyashiro-sama's curse. Demolish the dam. Those involved must go away. The construction office must respond. The construction office manager must negotiate with us. Signs and banners crowded the roadside. Even reading the brush scrawled words was daunting. It was as though where the road just changed was a border with a different country. At that moment, I was startled by the car suddenly braking. Look ahead, a barricade had been erected. About 5 or 6 protesters wearing masks and helmets to hide their faces were blocking the road, yelling at us angrily to stop. What is this? A checkpoint? These guys never learn. Oishi snorted as he rolled down the window and leaned out. Hey, you guys can't be blocking the road like this here. As Oishi glared at them with a malicious laugh, they visibly faltered. Clear the way, we can't get by like this. Foo. You would have thought it was Oishi's car. That panicked thought seemed to make them lose their presence of mind. If we had known it was your car, Detective Oishi, we wouldn't have been so rude. Detective, what happened to your usual car? Is it in for maintenance? Something like that. I just can't get used to this car they loaned me. Foo. Judging from their brief conversation, I could guess that they were familiar with the license plate of the car Oishi normally used. In other words, if they knew the car belonged to the police, they would have hidden the barricade. What they were doing was obviously obstruction of traffic. A blatant crime. Who's that suspicious guy? You, could you show us your face? The man glared at me menacingly. Wearing a mask and sunglasses made me look particularly dubious. Would not showing my face get me into some unnecessary trouble? I turned to Oishi to see what I should do. Give him a break, he's still a shy little rookie. Foo. We just wanted to make sure he wasn't anybody suspicious. Hinamizawa has been in a bit of a stir as of late. Have you looked at yourself in the mirror? That mask you're wearing is way more suspicious. The men and Oishi continued to talk like that, feigning smiles at one another. However, from the beginning to the end, I couldn't get over the feeling I was sitting on a powder keg. Has the number of trucks illegally dumping still not decreased? It's a real hassle dealing with it all the time. If the police could understand and cooperate, it would really help. During that conversation, the barricade was moved, leaving a gap wide enough for a single car to get through. Oishi lightly honked the horn once and began to roll the car forward. I could see the men's antagonistic glares at the back of the car in the rearview mirror. What was that just now? Blocking a public road like that. Of course it's a crime. Still, if you get worked up over that, it'll never end. Foo. Those guys, see, claim there's an infestation of trucks illegally dumping in the village. Their story goes that in order to stop that, they're halting suspicious vehicles for inspection. Illegal dumping? Like corrupt contractors just tossing industrial waste away? Their line of argument is that if the police aren't going to do anything about it, they'll take matters into their own hands. Well, the industrial waste is just something they're doing themselves anyways. By themselves? They have a pretty good strategy. You see, in order to hinder construction, they've spread industrial waste over by the dam site. Then blaming it on corrupt contractors, they started instituting these inspections. They stop every construction vehicle coming through and interfere with them as much as possible. Foo foo foo. So then, it's one of the methods that the Onigafuchi Guardians is using. With that inspection just now, this car's license plate has probably been recorded. It shouldn't get stopped from here on out. Those guys know very well not to get me angry. Nah, heh, 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 heh. See, rumor is that they figure a car is related to the construction in some way, not only would there be checkpoints stopping it at every turn, but they'd be throwing rocks and planting road spikes as well. It's best you be careful so you're not identified. If they find out you're from public safety, who knows what you'll suffer through. Foo foo foo. Oh, she was acting like we were talking about something fun, but for me it was no laughing matter. It almost feels like we've wandered into a civil war in the Middle East. Nah, ha 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 ha. That's a good way of putting it. It's pretty much just what you said. Oh, she turned to me with a grin and menacing laugh. You see, this here's a war zone. The car slowed down a bit as it went down a narrow road through some farmland. See that house in the forest over there? That antiquated one. Looking at where Oishi was pointing, there certainly was an old, traditionally designed house that belongs to the mayor, Old Man Kimiyoshi. You could say it belongs to the main Kimiyoshi house as well. There's a lot of branches, but there'd be one of the three families. The three families? The ancient families that control Hinamizawa? That's right. And one of the others is the Furude family. Their house doesn't even have a single branch. It is all that's left in the head priest family. Right over there, that's the shrine. He's the priest there. By the way, the Guardian's office is on the grounds of that shrine. The office of the Onigafuchi Guardians. If these guys were the enemy, that would make the shrine their stronghold. Can we go look over there? The shrine is the Furude family's private property, you see. Being police, we can't set foot in there without a warrant. See, they got a member of the Diet with ties to the village backing them up. Basically, being the police has its strengths and weaknesses. Well, even when we talk about the three families, that's something from a long time ago. His accent's getting so bad. Way back when, those three families used to hold councils to decide things about the village. Meaning, it's different now? You got a pretty good nose. That's what I expect from an academic. Foo foo foo. The car braked to a halt with a squeal. Ahead of where we stopped were several signs. Private property beyond, no trespassing. This Sonozaki? Beware of poisonous snakes. This is the Sonozaki household. Danger, turn back. Intruders will be charged an entry fee of 1 million yen. Signs were erected there with things like that written on them. I remember the poisonous snake sign. The road was separated from the forest by a chain-link fence wrapped in barbed wire. Since this is private property, this is as far as we go. There's several surveillance cameras set up further in. Saying that we just got lost won't work with these guys. They're beyond here, right? The people currently controlling Hinamizawa and the Onigafuchi Guardians were neither the Kimiyoshi family nor the Furude family, but the last of the three. Yeah, beyond here is one of the three families, the Sonozaki family. They're the ones controlling Hinamizawa from the shadows. Among the list of executives recorded in the documents, the number of people with last names from the three families was quite high. Of course, Sonozaki was no exception. However, at the top was the Kimiyoshi family. If the Kimiyoshi family seemed to be in charge, the rulers behind the scenes were the Sonozaki family. This double-layered structure implicitly told me that this village had both the light and the dark side. The current head of the Sonozaki family is an old lady named Oryo. She has enough clout that you could call her Empress Sonozaki. Be careful, she's no small fry. She's enough of a VIP that even the mayor of the city has to bow before her. Well, in Hinamizawa and the surrounding area, their relatives amount to a block of several thousand votes. No politician should disrespect for that. could show disrespect for that and foo. In other words, that would make her the actual leader of the Onigafuchi Guardians, right? You've got it. With those words, Oishi pulled out a well-worn cigarette box. The suspected kidnapping of the minister's grandchild and subsequent threats. Were these part of the hidden plot by the Onigafuchi Guardians in order to have the Hinamizawa Dam project cancelled? You came all the way from Tokyo to investigate this, didn't you? Huh? Yeah, that's right. Something the matter? Then, is it related to that direct appeal incident with Minister Inukai? If that's the case, then public safety has them marked on a watch list, something like that. Having you guess that so quickly makes this easy. While exhaling out cigarette smoke, Oishi smiled broadly, like I'd just pulled a good one on him. Or so I thought. His smile disappeared suddenly. That's a lie, isn't it? Huh? I mean, the direct appeal putting him on a watch list. That's a lie, isn't it? Oishi knew there was no way that Tokyo HQ would dispatch an investigator over something as minor as a direct appeal. If they were to dispatch someone, it had to be for a more dire reason. He had figured out as much. I thought of myself as the type of person who doesn't let things show on their face. In front of his watchful gaze, however, I felt that what I was thinking was completely laid bare. Oishi silently lit another cigarette, as if waiting for me to interject during this awkward pause. I see. So this was a veteran detective's way of getting someone to spill information, but as long as I realized this, there would be nothing more. If I didn't open my mouth, I wouldn't have to lose anything. All I had to do was stare out the window and enjoy the scenery until Oishi gave up. Foo. You really are bad at hiding things, you know. Being so young and earnest isn't so bad. Oishi smirked as he twisted out his third cigarette while I tried not to let him notice that I had yielded completely. At first I thought I had won, but at the very least, Oishi had ascertained that I was hiding something, meaning that I might have ended up marching to his tune. Oishi started up the engine once again and began to move the car. If you'd just been honest with me, I thought I might have been able to help you. How would you help? If the cat was out of the bag, I might as well use it to catch some mice. Well, this depends on what we're talking about, but I might be able to set you up with someone who's knowledgeable about the goings-on in Hinamizawa. An informant? Foo. I see, is that what you call it? Why are you interested in my case, Oishi-san? Well, I'm the same as you. Isn't it our business to know things? Being able to meet with Oishi's informant was an extremely compelling opportunity. We were looking to recruit somebody familiar with the area to collaborate with for intelligence. In the end, there was no better method for finding people than asking. We were always taught, however, that the rank-and-file police were no better than monkeys. Unlike us, they were careless with confidential cases. We looked down on them like they'd run their mouth off in a drunken stupor. Oishi was an outlaw, even amongst them. And here I was, lost on whether or not I should tell him about the kidnapping of the minister's grandson. This informant, exactly how knowledgeable are they about the Onigafuchi Guardians? If you're from public safety, you'd know, wouldn't you? Something like that is something I can't just tell you. I wonder if they're gonna meet up with, one of the Hojos. Because they were for the dam project. Protect your sources. That was the first principle of dealing with confidential information. Okay, I wanted to get through this chapter, but I need to take a break and get some water. So... Boink. I will run a 2-minute ad break and I'll be back. See you soon! I'm back. Yay! Okay. Hopefully, I wanna finish this chapter. And get through the tips, if there are any. Alright, Why? Let me put my gloves on. In that regard, it seemed that Oishi wasn't one of those monkeys. Should I trust him, ask for his help, or not? It's just that you work for the feds and I work for the prefecture. I don't think that our jobs are that different. I think I can be a help. It's changed again. However, I had trouble believing that this crafty old man would simply help me, just like he claimed. Now, how should I go about this? I find it hard to believe that someone of your standing would help me out without strings attached. Well, it's not like I'm completely without an ulterior motive. As you recall, you guys have space in your budget allocated to pay informants, right? Something you don't need to submit a receipt for. Just a little bit of that will be the cost of meeting with the informant. In other words, give the compensation earmarked for the informant to you first. Well, it helps that the details of this deal are so clear-cut. He certainly was something else for being able to brazenly state his ulterior motive like this. Rather than him doing this out of the kindness of his heart, everything was a lot clearer if he was being compensated for this deal. I felt that he was the type of man who was good at these backroom dealings. Don't misunderstand me, please. It's not me who needs the money, it's the informant, okay? Well, in regards to the payment, I'll be handling the money. Foo-foo. When do you want it? Right now will be good. If you don't have it on you, tomorrow works as well. I pulled out a wallet that was different from my personal one. The price was pretty much fixed depending on what kind of information I was paying for. In this case, the payment was upfront. Also, considering the fact I didn't know what kind of info I would get, I shouldn't pay too much. When I suggested that, Oishi suddenly stretched out his hand and tightly grasped the contents of the wallet. Times like this, it's best you not be so stingy. It's alright, it won't go to waste. I understand. I won't be stingy. And what kind of information are you looking for? Depending on what you want, how we approach this will probably change. You swear you won't spread this information to anybody else, Oishi-san? I can't swear as much. I'm the same as you. I can't withhold information obtained during the course of my duties. I got it, I swear. Nothing here gets said anywhere else. On top of that, thanks to you, I can pay back what I owe from my mahjong debts. In any case, I won't break a promise that involves money. Foo. I was still unsure if I should trust him until the very last moment, but in the end, I broke down. Oishi wasn't the type of guy I could trust 100%, but there was no mistaking he had access to underground information networks. In order to accomplish my mission swiftly, I needed his cooperation. I set my resolve. I'm investigating whether or not the Onigafuchi Guardians is related to a certain incident. Certain incident? There's a possibility that the Minister of Construction, Inukai, is being coerced by someone. The Minister of Construction. Saying that there's a possibility is kind of a roundabout way of putting it. It appears there's a mole close to the Minister, and due to that mole, the Minister had been monitored quite thoroughly and was seemingly forced to cede to their threats right away. None of this was reported to us or the police. I see. So that's why you're saying there's only a possibility he's being coerced. In that case, isn't it a little strange? If the Minister didn't report this to anybody, how'd you guys know about this incident? If we didn't spy on the Minister's private life, we would have never found out. I don't think we have to provide that explanation to the informant, so I'm omitting it. Oishi had apparently caught on and quietly chuckled when I refused to explain. I see. There's a spy close to the Minister, so public safety made it a highly classified information. Investigation, oh my goodness. That certainly isn't a very amicable story, is it? If this matter became public, not only would this affect the Minister's political career, but the possibility of there being a shift in the political landscape is extremely high. If the perpetrator's aim is indeed that, then this could develop into a very grave situation. Well, with the government having development projects all over the country, they butted heads with quite a few people. His voice is just insane. It's gonna change so much. It wouldn't take much wrongdoing for the left-wing parties to suddenly garner more support. We're currently investigating what demands are being forced on the minister, but at least we have a good idea of how he's being threatened. How? The minister's grandson was kidnapped. They're denying it, but judging from when he was last seen, it's believed it's already been over 72 hours since the kidnapping. So 3 days. If they were just after ransom money, this would have been settled by now. It may be this isn't for monetary gain. The possibility that they're forcing the minister to do something politically is extremely high. That's something we just can't consent to. So then, Onigafuchi Guardians was listed as one of the possible perpetrators. That is correct. Kidnapped the minister's grandson and demanded the cancellation of the dam project. What do you think, Oishi-san? From your point of view, do you think that's possible? Oishi seemed to ponder the idea for a while. The section chief of the regional office had responded immediately with, "It's possible." However, Oishi, who was this well informed about the matter, was hemming and hawing. Finally, just a little bit. He said something that was really just a little bit strange. This was before the Meiji era, you see. This area wasn't named Hinamizawa Village back then, it was called Onigafuchi. This is just what I heard from my mother. This topic was so completely and subtly unrelated to the subject of the kidnapping of the minister's grandson that I was taken slightly aback. Onigafuchi. Oh, so that's why they're called the Onigafuchi Guardians. You see, the village of Onigafuchi was said to be inhabited by demons that devoured humans. Even now. It's believed that the blood of these demons partially courses through the veins of the villagers. Demons that devour humans? Oishi-san, what are you saying? It's information. I got a lot from you just now. A little too much. In exchange, I'm giving you a little freebie. It's so bad. Oishi finally smiled, but it didn't seem like he was fooling around. Please continue. You see these human-devouring demons. Normally they were revered as Taoist transcendents, and live tucked away from the rest of the world, but they ate people after all, so apparently they go to villages in the foothills regularly and abduct their prey. They used to call that being demoned away, or onikakushi. Demoned away. It was the first time I'd heard such a peculiar phrase. Not for me, I've heard it many, many times. I'm a little bit annoyed that we're going over it again, but okay. I guess not everyone has been... It's making sure that you get the point. I get that. However, I felt something slightly ominous from this horrifying tale of demons abducting people in order to eat them. Look, you know how there's the common phrase, spirited away? When people suddenly go missing one day, they call it that. When the same thing happens around here, they call it being demoned away. How does that old tale relate to the matter at hand? Oh no, there's no direct relationship, I'm just making some small talk here. It's just... Ka-dump, ka-dump. The car shook. At some point the gravel road had changed to a paved one. It's just what? That around here the phrase demoned away is somewhat of a code for disappearances and kidnappings. I just thought I'd mention that. I don't know if this has anything to do with the kidnapping of the minister's grandson. Well, there's no deep meaning behind it. It's just, there's that little bit of history. Foo 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 foo. Onikakushi. Human-eating demons coming down to the foothills and abducting their prey. Then, in order to cancel the dam project that threatened to submerge the village they lived on, did they demon away the minister's grandson? Then, had they already made an example out of the minister's grandson and eaten him alive? It's a bit of an interesting old tale, isn't it? If you set foot into the demon's village without reason, you'll promptly be captured and eaten alive. So don't go near Onigafuchi. Kids these days might not believe such superstitions, but amongst the older folks in Okinomiya born in the Meiji era, many would never question these warnings. Hinamizawa village was feared by the people in the area. I recalled that piece of information when I heard from the Prefectural Public Safety Division. In any case, we're in the boonies out here. It's kind of expected that there'll be some superstitions around. Somebody from Tokyo like you, Akasaka-san, probably couldn't even begin to imagine it, could you? The man-eating demons, as the price for violating the sanctity of their village, kidnapped the minister's grandson and swallowed him whole. That ludicrous idea flew through my head. It was so absurd, I was half disgusted with myself. Or she was just teasing me. Stupid. It was all really so stupid. Come to think of it, by then, I may have already been seized by the curse of that dubious village. For me to realize that, it would take a little more time. Ooh. Ooh. It's interesting. I mean, I guess because this one wasn't originally planned, I think, this episode. Oh my goodness. The chick in the trunk? What the fuck? Yeah, so because this wasn't originally planned, I guess it makes sense for it to deviate from the, like, regular formula. Right, let's check it out. Oh god. Alright, phone call with Yukie. Oh, really? It's tough when such a sudden assignment. Please be careful. Where are you headed? You already there? Whenever I headed out on assignment, she would ask where. Not just Yukie, but anybody would have asked the same question. If it was a cold place, she would urge me to pack a thick jacket. If it was far, she'd warn me to be careful on the drive over. It was just normal, everyday concern that led to asking such an obvious thing. I felt sad that I couldn't answer such a run-of-the-mill question. Sorry, it's something that you can't talk about, isn't it? Please be careful. Sorry, Yukie. At some point you started apologizing right away, even though when you first started your job you were all gung-ho about it. Yukie laughed as though she had realized something. At times like this, Yukie had the magical power to see right through me. It's already been quite a while since I was admitted to the hospital. Are you finally getting lonely? Don't tease me. I'm too old to get lonely. Oh really? You actually like to be doted on, don't you? And you start getting a little faint of heart when I'm not around? Hehe. Ah, jeez. I can see the little devil horns sprouting from your head right now. You've always been like this. You can't hide it. You can't hide it. If I don't play with you, you get all lonely. I can hear your tail wagging over the phone. Hehe. Dog boy? Akasaka? The sight of Yukie wasn't something you could guess existed from seeing her usual modest behavior, and it was something that she didn't show to anybody else but me. Normally, I'd poke her to hide my embarrassment and bring an end to the conversation, but I couldn't do that over the phone. Of course, Yukie was clever. She was teasing me because of that. I wonder when I figured out that giving you grief was this much fun. Give me a break. In any case, it's good to hear you so lively. I know, right? Did I cheer you up? I had called Yukie to keep her from feeling lonely when she was by herself in the hospital room. Of course, that was nothing more than a pretense that I, being shy, had come up with. It seemed that Yukie had long since seen through that act. Yeah. Please phone again. When I'm not feeling up to it, I'll get my father to talk to you. Although, if you're talking with my father, I get the feeling that you'd be standing at attention on the other side of the line. For a while longer, Yukie kept teasing me without letting me end the call. Sweet! Seems like they got a nice relationship. Okay. Record of opening remarks. Chairman Meh, members of the Meh Party. Congratulations are due, as we are celebrating 25 years since our founding. These past 25 years have seen much growth in Meh Prefecture. The once quiet scenery of nothing but fields now has seen the opening of a new stop for the bullet train. And with the development of the highway, we've seen the rebirth of a modern city bursting with youthful energy. We've reaped the benefits of new businesses and industry. And with a special reverence, the residents of Meh Prefecture have the time-honored traditions, history and culture, business and industry. With these ideals in harmony, they have accomplished in growing their city into one of Japan's foremost metropolises. Of course, the development of Meh Prefecture couldn't have happened without the growth of the Meh Party. We are resolved to see every one of our campaign promises to fruition, reaching our targets definitively and expediently. Like arrows fired from a bow. With these arrows as the fundamental basis of the Meh Party, our members have sought to pierce the obstructions preventing the happiness of the residents of Meh Prefecture. But I do believe that everybody here is unlike an ordinary arrow. While being as unfaltering and straightforward, we have not neglected in seeking solutions that conform to the current day and age while also keeping an eye on the future. An arrow once loosened can only fly to its destination. Everyone here, however, is no simple arrow. Even once loosed from the bow, without neglecting our studies, while employing new methods and implementing more effective and flexible ideas, thus being able to change trajectories mid-flight, we are magical arrows. The modern age marches ever forward. Sometimes it marches faster than the time taken from planning to execution. The following part was not in the script. It is thought to have been ad-libbed by the minister. For example, there have recently been numerous problems with the Hinamizawa power plant project. Rather than forcing through the project solely because it was decided upon by the government, it is necessary to reflect on and adjust the ever-changing needs of the residents, the region, and the next generation. Is this because he's being, pressured by the people who kidnapped his grandson? The protests by the local residents that surround the Hinamizawa Dam, these are also the will of the people of the Mur Prefecture. If you feel that there is no need to listen because the project has already been finalized, then you do nothing more than shed a poor light on Japan's post-war democracy. The following is as per the script. The lasting happiness of the citizens of Japan and the residents of Mur Prefecture, please consider these policies thoroughly. I believe, however, we have all gained something from the flexibility and foresight of the Mur Party. I've taken up much of your time, however, allow me to say the following to celebrate the 25th anniversary of our founding. Chairman Mur, members of the Mur Party in attendance, thank you very much for today. From the opening remarks of the Mur Party Prefectural Forum and 25th anniversary celebration. Gears and fire and the taste of honey. That's ominous. Let's see what it's about. The world is filled with people blessed with relationships. Of course, that doesn't mean that everyone is connected to each other. It's obvious that on the other side of the planet, there are people laughing and crying who can't possibly have an effect on you. However, in the extremely limited community of the neighborhood, that sort of connection is just a matter of fact. It's quite possible that a single remarkable event could have massive consequences inside a small community. If you were to increase that in scale, a perfect stranger on the other side of the globe might become enough of a legend to have an effect on our lives. Well, it's not always that way. Like I said at the beginning, the links between people basically aren't that relevant in the grand scheme of things. Whether some household nearby is having steak or croquettes doesn't matter to me. When I put on my shoes, it doesn't matter to anybody whether I put the right one on first or the left. This much the average person can understand, but actually in reality, this is the truth. The bonds between people are quite well defined. It's not just a matter of distance, of being far or near. For example, let's say that person A's actions have some effect on me. Even then, person B's actions could have absolutely no consequence on my life. The reverse also holds true. Just because my actions affect person A, that doesn't always mean that they affect person B as well. Let's put it bluntly. If the bonds between people are like gears in a machine, the gear that represents me meshes with some people but is isolated from others. There are some who would try arguing against this. Those people would bring up the example of gears in a clock. Each gear, indeed, only directly meshes with one or two others. However, if you rotate one gear, the one next to it is moved, which connects to the next one, and the next. In the end, all the gears are moving. There is a logic behind this, more than enough to convince the average person. Why is the argument convincing? The answer is simple. The relationships between people are ambiguous, and can only be described conceptually. How the gears are connected and how their movements are chained together can't be used as a fundamental explanation, so it throws a wet blanket on that argument. So for the people who like that explanation, I'll use the example of a clock again to refute it. First of all, to say that this world is a singular clock would be wrong. That is, there isn't only one clock. There exist many clocks in this world, each counting their own time. If you think about it, the idea that this world is just one big clock is the height of arrogance. Even if you use the analogy of gears to explain human relationships, then you should be able to explain it using an analogy of multiple clocks unrelated to a single gear. Neighbors A and B. A is a gear in the same clock as me, so it's best to remain civil. B is a gear in a different clock, so he doesn't really matter to me at all. That's the kind of clear distinction I'm talking about. You want to say I'm being...
Fallacious.
Fallacious. What was that word? Fundus? That's a great word. You want to say I'm being fallacious? Then let's change the analogy to something more familiar so you can understand. You've probably heard the phrase, a fire on the opposite shore sometime in your life, no? I was gonna look it up, but then I realized they're gonna explain it. For example, if your neighbor's house is on fire, you'd probably try and help to put it out, wouldn't you? It'd be awful if the fire spread and burned down your own house after all. But what if that fire was in a town of the opposite side of the river? Would you stop? Would you still go out of your way to help? You wouldn't, would you? Even though it would be the wrong thing to do. There's no way the fire could spread to your own house. Even if it turned into a huge conflagration.
Conflagration.
Conflagration. An extensive fire which destroys a great deal of land or property. Conflagration. What a good word. Even if it turns into a huge conflagration, there's no relation between the houses that will spread fire to yours and those that won't. With this basic example, you should be able to see the difference between gears that are or aren't related to your own. Having said that, there's still a lot to think about, even without a river to divide it. After all, it's not a spatial problem like being on the other side of the river, is it? Why blood? What's the taste of honey? I wonder if this is kind of talking about how some things change between episodes and some things don't. The chick in the trunk. The car had stopped, but he didn't know any more than that. But not only was he blindfolded, but locked in the trunk of the trunk of the car. How could people become this powerless just by being robbed of their sight? He absolutely wouldn't have known this without experiencing it firsthand. Is this the kid? He soon realized it was pointless to try and undo his bonds, with the confines of the trunk quickly making him lightheaded. He had no choice but to let this mild torture dull his senses. That's why, when the car stopped and the unpleasant vibration ceased as the engine was killed, he couldn't help but delude himself that he was being set free, even though nothing had been resolved in reality. Of course, he was soon removed from that delusion. He strained his ears when he heard one of the men who had abducted him and an older man, who he was hearing for the first time, strike up a conversation. Nice to see you. The chick is in the trunk. He struggled so much that he's probably exhausted right now, but there's not a mark on him, just as ordered. Oh, must have been a handful. The trunk opened, letting in a blast of fresh, cool air. Even though up until just now he had been thinking about getting out of that stuffy trunk, when it was actually opened, he suddenly became uneasy. Enough so that he wished the lid of the trunk would once again close, separating himself from them. Suddenly, somebody stroked his head. Of course, since he was blindfolded, he couldn't tell if the hand was petting him or simply evaluating how easy it would be to remove his scalp. Unable to tell the difference, he could only freeze as he imagined the worst-case scenario. Poor little bugger. He's shaken. Just stay calm for a bit. The older man said that kindly as he gently stroked the boy's head. This must be real tough for you. But you see, your Gramps is a nice man. He'll help you soon enough. Having heard nothing but the average standard dialect his whole life, the older man's distinct intonation left a deep impression on the boy. But he had no idea what he was saying. Or your Gramps to register as meaning your grandfather took a while to process. Eventually, the hand that was stroking his head loosened the blindfold. Can't keep his eyes covered. If he splits his face open, it'd be bad. And with that, we might as well take out the gag. He can't breathe like that. It'll be trouble if he yells. Leave him to us. Geez, you guys don't know how to treat somebody. The main family said no rough stuff. You better remember that well. Yeah, we won't do anything stupid, as long as the kid cooperates, that is. The man's hand prodded roughly and repeatedly at the boy's head. A rugged hand, unlike the affectionate one that had been stroking his head before. Just stay cooperative. If you struggle, there's no guarantee what will happen. That cliched threat was, literally beaten into his head. Okay, interesting. Alright. We're gonna leave it here for today. Thank you for coming along, everyone. This is such a unique start. Like, in the last episode, there was the bit with the body that was found, but then it went to the usual thing. So this is very different, and I wonder if we will get to the more traditional formula. Yeah. Interesting, interesting. Alright, well, thank you very much for coming along, everywhere. I hope you will have a very good day or night. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. I may or may not be streaming tomorrow. I'll let you know on the Discord. Discord.
Yahoo! Alright. Bye bye! See ya, see ya!